That was a fast start.
Coaches. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, they can't hold a flame against you, ay. Blow the whistle, blow the whistle, blow the whistle, got the game, it ain't no issue, yeah. Blowing the whistle, I had enough with you, the championship, it is gone. Ain't listen to you, I can't give it to you, cause you don't know what I've been on. This is the Coaches Podcast.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Fantasy Coaches. I am your host, as always, Coach Steve, guys. We have another fun, fantastic episode for you guys today. We are back. It is almost the end of week 3. Hopefully your teams are winning because there's obviously 2 games left to play tonight, which is always fun to see. But it also sucks for fantasy because you're like waiting to find out even longer whether or not you're going to win, which kind of sucks. But we'll find out soon enough. But again, we are into week 4 almost, which means waiver wire time. We got to talk waivers tonight. We're going to talk some keep and cut, and obviously we're going to get into the injury news from the weekend. Let me introduce the crew. As always, Coach John, welcome to the show.
What's up, everybody?
What's going on? What's going on? Coach Jibbs cannot make it on tonight's show, guys, but he will be back at some point soon. So, like I said, guys, fun weekend, week 4, week 3. You know, if you watch football, you know, as a big Dolphins fan I'm sitting high and pretty right now on the world. Great weekend for the Dolphins, but hopefully it was also a good weekend for my fantasy teams. But obviously we need to continue to build, adjust, and make our way to the championship. So we're going to start with the news, obviously, here, and we'll start right from there. Obviously some concussions. Gus Edwards concussion, Jonathan Mingo concussion, Jimmy G concussion. We'll have to wait and see how the week goes with these guys there and see if they're going to be available for week 4. Jimmy G's was Sunday night, so that could be a slight concern that he's not available for this week. So Mike Williams, this was big, obviously. After having a monster week 3, he is torn ACL. He is out for the season now. Major blow to this Chargers team that finally got themselves a win this week over the weekend here. But he is out for the year, Dunzo. And again, we'll talk about replacements and the players who will step up in his place in a few minutes here. But major blow. And then Derek Carr, AC sprain in his shoulder. He is week to week. Again, we might talk about a guy that you might be able to replace with him if you had him on your dynasty or your fantasy team or not. But again, nothing. Again, it's a couple crazy things here, but nothing that.
Yeah, Mike Williams was kind of the big one. I would expect, kind of the way concussions have been going over the past 2 years, I would expect Gus Edwards and Jonathan Mingo and Jimmy G, to be honest with you, all 3 of them to probably miss this week.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Mike Williams was the big. I mean, that's the hammer.
Yeah, definitely. It really sucks to see that, but it's fantasy. We have to deal with the injuries, and we will find you replacements tonight. But before we find you for replacements, we got to talk about whether or not about some of the players on your roster are actually worth rostering still in our new segment called Keep and Cut. Again, I didn't come up with that. Obviously, it's been here forever. First one on the board here. There's 10 here. We'll go through them quickly here. Joshua Kelly. Obviously, Kelly has been the lead back for the Chargers the last 2 weeks with Austin Eckler out. We don't know when Austin Eckler is coming back in. But he's had under 5 fantasy points as a starter in back-to-back games now. Do you still hold on to him, or do you just let him go?
I would let him go. I think, in my opinion, if you can't be viable with Austin Eckler out of the lineup in back-to-back weeks, in a time when your team, was putting up points, it's not like the Chargers looked like crap. I just don't think there's ever going to be a time when I can start you. So I'm willing to cut him and let him be a landmine for someone else.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page, especially if there's a player out there we'll talk about in a little bit that's out there. I'd be willing to drop Joshua Kelly because I think after 2 weeks now, I think we might see someone else get mixed in there. Maybe Isaiah Spiller, maybe Elijah Dalton, Dotson, that's his name, Dotson, I think, get mixed into this group if Austin Eckler is to miss another week. A.J. Dillon, under 7 fantasy points in each game this year. He had the game to himself back-to-back weeks. Unproductive. Keep or cut?
Oh, this is the one that I was thinking. I knew you were going to ask, and I was thinking about all day is, do you keep or cut A.J. Dillon? And it's crazy. I'm starting to feel the same way about A.J. Dillon as I do about Joshua Kelly, where it's like Aaron Jones is out of the lineup, and I still can't play you. When am I ever going to get the chance to really rely on you as a fantasy starter? So yes, it sucks because you're guaranteed sort of 8 to 10 touches every week. But if you're going to keep running at 2.2 a clip, like I don't really care about the volume. So I think same thing. I think maybe AJ Dillon has enough cachet of a name that you could trade, and I would trade him away for even like a Jeff Wilson, like trade him away for anything. But yeah, I think we got to move on from AJ Dillon. It's been, what is he on year 4 now in the league? It's like
he's in a contract year too.
Yeah, I think AJ Dillon, despite how much we loved him, despite the size, the build, I think AJ Dillon might just be a guy, which is kind of annoying.
Yeah, I'm on the same page here. I mean, at this point, if you're looking, he's likely not starting. And if you're going to start him, you're in a bad situation with your running backs as it is. But if you're not starting him, he's basically just a piece that's on your bench that's not going to help you ever. You're going to maybe throw him in as a bye week replacement. But again, Aaron Jones will be back at some point. So what are you really getting with the upside with AJ Dillon? There is no upside there. He's better off cut. I'd rather pick somebody else up and that actually has upside, like a Tajay Spears that we'll talk about in a few that could have upside under like what AJ Dillon is showing us. Dalvin Cook, I think we're in a similar boat with Dalvin Cook as well. Under 8 fantasy points in each game. Keep or cut Dalvin Cook.
I mean, he's another one that's, I just don't know really. I mean, unless there's a major injury to Breece Hall, but even at that point, this Jets offense looks kind of putrid. So, I mean, at that point, you can go fight the waiver wire for him if you want, but I'm okay cutting Dalvin Cook too, which is crazy.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat. We see this Jets offense; they're not moving the ball at all. They're not giving themselves any opportunity to score. And it's like, what's Dalvin Cook going to offer you at this point in a split role in a 3-man committee? I cut him as well. There's a lot of cuts in this episode here. Antonio Gibson has been 1 game over 3 fantasy points this year. Keep or cut Antonio Gibson. It's
crazy to be cutting all these these running backs because we say every week that running back is a tough position, and here I am cutting 4 right off my roster. But I'm okay. I'm okay cutting Antonio Gibson too. I think I'm cool with it.
Yeah, it really this was a game for him to kind of step up and be something because the Commanders were so far behind. And he finished with less than 2 fantasy points. Yeah. Like, that really tells you what a game script. I thought this was the game script for him. Clearly, it wasn't. It's clearly hard to trust most of these Commanders' offense right now. He's gone off my team, too. Treylon Burks, 1 game over 8 fantasy points this year.
I would still keep him. I think wide receivers, they can have sort of down stretches and down. He's still getting snaps. He's still running routes. He's still seeing downfield targets. I think he's on the edge where, if you want to cut him for, a different – there would have to be a pretty big name out there for me to just cut bait with Treylon Burks at this point. I still think there is a little bit of value there.
Yeah, I'm honestly – I'm going to continue with my cuts. I'm cutting them, honestly. Yeah. I mean – the passing offense is not great. If they move off of Tannehill, like I think Malik Willis gets the first shot. Is Malik Willis something we're going to want to see? Probably not with our wide receivers. So, again, I'll cut him. I'll let someone else take that blow because I just don't see the upside for him in the way this offense is built. This one hurts, but Jahan Dotson, under 7 fantasy points in each of the games this year. Do you keep or cut Jahan Dotson?
Yeah, this is another one. When I was thinking of people you were going to bring up, I figured AJ Dillon and Jahan Dotson were definitely going to get brought up, and they're 2 of like the hardest names. I would cut Jahan Dotson. I love him. Year 2 player. You want to see him break out, but Sam Howell just doesn't seem to be looking his way. They're not really using him the way he can be used. So until further notice, I just don't know. You definitely can't start him. So I think if you're, cut him for some of these names we bring up later that might be a spot start or B, even a season-long upside play, I think you can do it because I don't know if Jahan Dotson is ever really going to, at least this season, break out into that must-start player that we expected.
Right. I'm still keeping Jahan Dotson on this one, honestly. I want to give him a few more weeks. I want this offense to hopefully maybe make adjustments after a really bad loss in week 3 that will hopefully kind of get him. Like, we got to get this guy the ball more because where he's getting underutilized heavily. Great question in the chat from Albert here. This is perfect here. And again, we're going to get this guy, but you cut Treylon Burks for Tank Dell.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I absolutely would. It's funny. I think we're gonna go into our pickups of the week. Tank Dell to me is my number one pickup. So I would cut just about every name on this list for Tank Dell. Actually, I take that back. I would definitely cut every name on this list for Tank Dell.
Yeah, I would be pretty close. I don't think there's anyone that I can make a true argument for that you don't want to have Tank Dell right now on your roster. Darnell Mooney, 0 points over the last 2 weeks.
See ya.
See,
Done.
yeah.
You don't want anything to do with the Bears. Trust me,
Nope.
as someone who's invested heavily in Justin Fields, you don't want anything to do with the Bears right now.
Nope, you do not. All right, some tight ends here. David Njoku, under 5 fantasy points in each game this year. Keep or cut?
Tight ends to me are so cut them. I mean, I guess David Njoku's always been a streaming option to me. I don't know why this year people thought he was going to be a top 5 guy. He's just a streaming guy. So, whoa, sorry for the rolling thunder. So I'm okay cutting him and picking up someone else to play for the week. Sure, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, me too, honestly. I mean, you can keep them, you can cut them. It really doesn't matter. If there's someone out there that you like better, and maybe someone that we'd either talk about on waiver pickups or somebody we talk about on start and sits, like that's the only way you could cut them. You could cut David Njoku. Like, it's not a big deal, but you can hold on to him as well. Dalton Kincaid, under 7 fantasy points in each game this year.
I mean, they're using him more as like a slot receiver than they really are a tight end. So he out of the 3 tight ends here, he's the one I would keep. And I guess I'll say keep on Dalton Kincaid. I don't want to cut everyone.
Yeah, no. I would keep Kincaid too. I think there are better days ahead for him still at some point. Well, we do have a question in the chat from Captain. Huge fan of the stream. Thank you, Captain. Appreciate it.
Captain.
Already a sub. Love that. Do I trade Amari Cooper for King Henry?
I mean, I think now, especially in redraft format, I think now is a good buy low for Henry. I mean, he had a terrible game. Titans, there's not a ton of hype around the Titans anymore. I think and in my opinion, Derrick Henry's still Derrick Henry. He could still have a 150-yard multi-touchdown game at a moment's notice. So if you're hurting at running back, I think that's a totally fair trade. I guess it depends on the rest of your roster. Like if you think you have a wide receiver to burn and you want to get Henry, I would do it. And then again, you could always, we'll talk about it, but there's way better waiver options at wide receiver than there are at running back. So, you can replace that wide receiver production of Amari Cooper pretty easily on the waiver. It's harder to replace running back production on the waiver wire. So I'm totally cool with that trade.
Yeah, I think this is a great question because Amari Cooper was coming off back-to-back really, really good games here this coming season. And King Henry has just been not that great for the most part. But I still think there are better days. I mean, you have to imagine that if they move off of Tannehill, they move with Malik Willis or Will Levis, they're going to continue to run the ball at a high rate. That's not changing at all. He had a tough matchup this week. The Browns are really good against running backs here, especially fantasy running backs. I believe they're a top 3 unit against fantasy running backs this season here. So this was already going to be a bad game for Derrick Henry. It was what it is. But I mean, if you look at his schedule down the stretch, I mean, he's got the Dolphins, he's got the Texans, Seattle Texans again. Like, that's the playoffs right there. So, like, if you're in the need of a running back right now and you can figure out to replace Amari Cooper's production, absolutely do it because you're not going to get him for probably this low. Like, someone's going to ask for something more next time around. As soon as he has a big game, someone's going to ask for something much more than Amari Cooper. Captain, I think it's a great trade right now to make. And then obviously, I think you kind of already answered this, John, but Dalton Schultz under 6 fantasy points a game. I'm pretty much on the verge of cutting him and myself, so I don't even think I want him on my roster right now. He is just not a part of this Houston Texans offense.
Yeah, you can. I mean, the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud are throwing at a legit historic rate, and Dalton Schultz still can't get it done. So exactly. I'm totally good with cutting Dalton Schultz.
Yes, I am too. So that is our keep and cut segment there, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Over to last week real quick. Just I'll briefly run through quarterbacks last week. Desmond Ridder didn't have a great week. Neither did Sam Howell. Baker and Stafford will find out tonight. RBs, like I said, Roshan was more of a long season play than it was this past week. Craig Reynolds didn't really do anything. Chuba Hubbard really didn't do anything, which that was a surprise. The Giants running backs, Matt Breida got a touchdown last week, so if you had to start him, you got at least 12 points, I think, from him. Savon Oddman was injured, and Tyjae Spears, obviously, he had a decent outing, I think, but again, nothing great that was out of him. But again, the running backs last week, they weren't the best, so it wasn't a good week. Neither is this week, really, besides one guy. Wide receivers, Josh Reynolds put up a big no-show, which was wild. Tutu Atwell will find out tonight. Obviously, Tank Dell had a really monster week. Bob Woods had an okay week. Calvin also had a big, long touchdown, made his fantasy day. Jaden Reed had a decent week. Devontae Parker didn't really do too much. Isaiah Hodgins put up a big fat 0. Marvin Mims didn't do much on offense, but he did have a kick return for a touchdown, or it was a punt return for a touchdown, one of the two. Jalen Tolbert went back with Brandon Cooks back in the lineup. Brandon Johnson, I think he had a couple catches, but nothing serious, unfortunately, out of him. Tight ends, Cade Otton will find out tonight. Jake Ferguson had a better, consistent game, which was nice to see. Zach Ertz didn't really do too much. Luke Musgrave had a pretty good game against a tough defense. And Logan Thomas, again, concussions, like John said, didn't make it for this week in week 3. So we will do better this week, obviously. And I think, week 2 we did a lot better than week 1. It's just the way I said that was a bad waiver week. So
it was a tough waiver week. It really was, because the other thing too is we didn't have a lot of information on Wednesday going into waivers. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of news was breaking on like Friday, Saturday, and so it's like tough to make waiver claims when you don't know who's in, who's out, and stuff like that. So hopefully this week it's a little sharper, a little clearer. Especially with like I think Jerome Ford was supposed to be on that list after the fact. We found out about the Chubb thing and the Kareem Hunt thing after the fact, unfortunately. So correct.
But quarterbacks now, we got some waiver wire quarterbacks we have here. Again, some higher guys like Jordan Love. He impressed me enough that I would like to roster him if he's available out there. Matthew Stafford, we'll find out tonight if he can keep up his 300-yard games. So those are the high guys that you probably won't see, but in a few leagues they might be out there. But John, I'll let you pick I'll let you break down the first guy. CJ Stroud, he's your number one quarterback pickup this week. Go ahead and break him down.
So I'm actually really happy with what I've seen out of CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans this season. You know, I love CJ Stroud as a prospect. I thought he was, really good. He can process well. He's never going to really run for you, but this is his ceiling. He can throw the ball all over the field. He can do anything he really wants with his arm. And so I think they're using him correctly. They surrounded him with a bunch of good weapons. And as long as they keep chucking the ball and are inefficient on the ground with Dameon Pierce, CJ Stroud looks to be a great option. I mean, he's going to, throw the ball 25, 30 times a game. And so when you have playmakers like Nico and Tank Dell and all these guys that can get in the end zone for you, then you end up putting up pretty solid fantasy days. There will be bad days. I will promise you that, because, he isn't going to bring you any sort of floor with his rushing. But as long as he's kind of staying hot, you got to keep riding it.
Yeah, no. CJ Stroud has been definitely very impressive so far this season here. I'm liking what he's actually showing. After week 1, I was a little concerned, but things have seemed to get better. I think that offensive line is also starting to get a little healthier. Hopefully Laramie Tussle can come back and be part of that left tackle spot there for them. But, I mean, he's throwing at a great rate. He's not turning the ball over in the air, which is fantastic. Not a single interception this year. Again, back-to-back 20 fantasy points. Sign me up to have him on my team, because Steelers, their front seven's great, but their secondary can be questionable in week 4. I had CJ Stroud too, but we both had the same.
I just noticed that too. Yeah.
Yeah, but our second one was Jameis Winston here, and Jameis Winston obviously is likely going to get a start this week here. I would be surprised if Derek Carr gets on the field for the New Orleans Saints this week. And Jameis Winston, he's a solid quarterback, but we know what he is. For one, he's got a revenge game coming up with the Bucs. That's always fun for him to go back and play the Bucs again. Last year he threw for over 240 yards in each game. He had 4 touchdowns over 3 games in 2022, although he also threw picks, but that's kind of what Jameis Winston was about. You take the good with the bad with him. Again, he's definitely probably a major pickup in Superflex leagues right now. In a 1 QB league, I think you could add him to your bench and see if he can get a nice play over the next few weeks. I mean, he's got some decent matchups that can be winnable, and he's got a good unit around him. So, I mean, he could definitely be worth a pickup for sure.
I agree. And listen, because this is what a lot of people are going to have to make decisions on this, like going forward, is like Jameis Winston or Justin Fields. Like, I'm taking Jameis Winston. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm willing to do that at this point. So I think even in single quarterback format, you have to start maybe making decisions and making tough moves. And it's like, Jameis Winston, we know who he is. He can be a fantasy dynamo because he just rips the ball 80 yards down the field every time. It's crazy. So I think Jameis, is set up. He's got pieces around him. He's set up to, be a good plug and play guy for, at least a couple weeks while Carr gets better. And then who knows, what they do with Derek Carr and Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill and that whole weird situation.
Right, exactly. A couple other options. If Andy Dalton gets another start, I mean, I'm okay. Yep. I'm okay bringing him back up again. Jimmy G, if he's playing, obviously. Baker Mayfield. Again, I liked him. I would love to see what he does tonight. And if he does well, he might have probably moved at my number 2 spot if he does well again tonight. So
I think Baker is just going to be in this segment from now until the end of the year. I think he's just always going to be. I just feel like it is.
He's going to be here. I would assume so. Yeah. All right, over to running backs now. A couple of guys that are at the top that have kind of fallen down recently. I mean, or haven't really made that big 60 to 70 leap yet. Roshan Johnson. I think Zach Charbonnet was dropped over this past week here. He had a good week. Again, I said you got to hold on to him because I think there could be better things coming. I'm going to take the first one here, John, because I am the Dolphins fan. Devon Achane, guys. Again, he fluctuates throughout the entire fantasy industry, whether he's available or not. But I use a combined fantasy pros rankings on this. And Devon Achane, now he's not going to do that every single week, guys. Let's be real. He's not running for 200 yards every week. And the reason why you haven't seen him do it until now was he was hurt the first few weeks of the season here. They didn't need him to come back in right away. The run game was doing well enough. They didn't force him to come back on the field, which was fantastic. Now, he's not going to do that every week. He's going to be a good player, and he has an opportunity to be the starter. I mean, we saw Raheem Mostert. It looks great, but he's also a 31-year-old running back that has injury concerns. Devon Achane, I think, should be a guy that needs to be rostered. And I think he might be someone that you can, again, I want to wait a week before. I want to see what they do with this Dolphins team. They have the Bills, tough matchup. I want to see how they use Devon Achane in the offense after, not having already been up 20 points. I want to see him in the following week. So you pick him up, you hold him on your bench, and you see, you kind of see what he is. And I think he could eventually be a starter that is someone you have for the whole season here. Yes. Sorry, someone in the chat was asking a question about answering questions. Absolutely, you can answer any questions you have. But yeah, I mean, John has mentioned as his number 1 too. Achane is the guy to pick up this week.
I will say this about Devon Achane, and you did kind of touch on it. 2 things. 1, don't think that this is normal. Like what we just saw. Like what we saw. The Broncos put up arguably the worst defensive performance I've ever seen in my 36 years of watching NFL football. Like it was embarrassing. So that's 1. 2, Devon Achane, there was, just exploded in every way, shape, or form. So I get it that we're all going to rush, we're going to get him, but good call out to be look, let's not just expect this every week. But with that being said, I will say, if you do want to reap the benefits of having Devon Achane on your team, you probably are going to have to start him every week and just accept the bad games and take the good games. He is, same thing, same opinion we had about Raheem Mostert preseason. We talked about it. We were look, Raheem Mostert, if he's active, you got to play him. He might have a great game. He might have a bad game, is what it is. You take it or leave it. I think we have to think the same way with Devon Achane, because if you're chasing matchups and in and out of your line, it's going to be one of those things where it's shit, 180 yards and 2 scores on my bench, and then you plug them in, and then the next week it's a Mostert Tyreek Hill game, and it's you just gotta in my opinion, this Dolphins offense is so explosive, so potent. If you have players, you just put them in your lineup and hope the roulette wheel falls on that guy that day. That's kind of how you have to treat it.
Agreed. We got a question in the chat from T Money. 8-man PPR or 8-man PPR 2 flex. Fields, he's giving his team here. Fields, yep. Jacobs, Kerryon Williams, Amon St. Brown, Olave, Ridley, Puka, Hawkinson, benches, Jacoby Myers, Goff, London, Sam Laporta, and Cup. Damn, that's a great team.
That's a great team.
Should I trade Sam Laporta and Puka and Myers for Bijan Robinson?
No.
Absolutely
no, I wouldn't.
Why?
No, I wouldn't. I think Laporta's turning into a legitimate piece that is.
But he's not going to start him.
He's got Hawkinson. Yeah, okay. I didn't see Hawkinson.
I mean, it's two flex. There is two flex. I mean, I get that.
Yeah, but still, I don't love carrying a ton.
No, don't let me change your mind.
Yeah. I still might not, because I listen. I believe in. Yeah, I'm still going to say no because Jacobs Field. I mean,
it's an 8-man league. It's an 8-man league.
Yeah, and his other
there could potentially be waiver wire pickups he can make that will be good enough for his bench.
Yeah, that's actually a good point too. 8-man Laporta, Puka. Yeah, I mean because I think it's Myers to me is a throw in at this point. So it's really Laporta and Puka for Bijan. Yeah, I mean, I guess probably. And then 8-man, you can probably find some replacement waiver wire wide receivers. We'll get to them, but like Tank Dell, guys like that to replace Puka and Jacoby Myers. And you don't really need Laporta because you got Hawkinson. You're never really going to sit that guy. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, okay. You talked me into it.
I didn't want to talk into it.
No, you didn't. No, but you did now. Now you did because if Jacobs and Bijan, I think Jacobs is a good buy low candidate right now because Jacobs is primed to sort of bounce back. If they ever catch fire and you get a stretch of Jacobs and Bijan being who we think they are, that could be 2 top 5 running backs. So yeah, that's pretty nifty to have.
I mean, if you look at his starting lineup, he could Williams could go in the flex easily, but you have then at that point an RB that is getting the passing work in the offense there. I know Puka is going to gets a lot of points, and I get that. But we don't know what's going to happen if Cooper Kupp comes back and Puka he goes back to seeing like 6 or 7 targets a game, and Kupp takes that rollback over. You're kind of screwed at that point with the Puka value. He's going to drop.
That's what risky. I was thinking too.
It is risky. I get it. But you're getting a guy like Bijan Robinson that is going to continue to see the run in the game. Yeah, it's a high price you're paying. It is. You're paying a high price to get Bijan Robinson, and it might be worth the risk though because Puka might not live up to what we've seen after the first 3 weeks here.
This is one of those trades that you could look back at in week 10 and go, man, I absolutely robbed this guy. It's one of those trades that you could look back and go, wow, I can't believe this happened. So I don't mind it. Kupp comes back healthy and, you got yourself a legit wide receiver core with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Olave, Ridley, Kupp, London coming off the bench. Like, I think you're fine. And then you have obviously Jacobs and Bijan. So yeah, it's a fair trade. It's good. I mean, it feels like a lot right now because of how good Puka is playing, but
yeah, and I think all these other guys, I think everyone's basically coming off highs right now. And while Bijan's coming off a low,
yep.
That's what makes it feel like it's kind of risky, but it could pay off for you in the long run.
Fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Thanks, Team Money. All right. Let's see here. John, you had Rico Dwellings as your number 2 here. I'm saying it wrong. I know that. But tell us a little bit about that real quick.
So Rico, clearly we're 3 weeks in. He is 100% the backup behind Tony Pollard. So this is both an insurance piece, but he's also getting a decent amount of touches. He's seeing, 8 to 10 touches a week. So if you are in an absolute dire position, you could play him. But he's just a super high end backup at this point. But, he fell in the end zone. He looks good. So if anything ever happened to Tony Pollard, Rico Dowdle could easily, be a in your lineup every week kind of guy. And at this point, he's, seeing touches in a backfield. You hope that the Cowboys offense clicks a little bit better and they start scoring more points. But he's getting involved and he's the clear number 2 to Tony Pollard right now.
Okay. So back to my side here. We'll just go to my next guy here because we're pretty much different a lot of ours today. So Tyjae Spears, like I said, guys, we mentioned Derrick Henry and how he should definitely be a good buy low right now, but Tyjae Spears should be picked up right now. He needs to be on benches, and we don't know what's going to happen. We're assuming that Derrick Henry is going to continue to heavy workload, but they might try to get Tyjae Spears a little bit more involved the way their offense is running. They might need a spark to get this offensive going. And, Spears is playing on the passing down work. He's getting work in this offense here. And we've seen all these handcuffs kind of these backup running backs, these young rookie running backs, so young running backs flashed this year already. So go out and get a guy who could have that whole backfield to himself if, God forbid, something happens to Derrick Henry this year, and he's already a little banged up. Go get a Tajay Spears and put him on your bench because he's someone that has, again, like the A.J. Dillon. Like I'd rather drop A.J. Dillon to get Tajay Spears on my bench because I think there's upside there that A.J. Dillon just isn't gutting in the offense right now.
Mm-hmm.
John, you have Elijah Mitchell on your list here. Why don't you go through that real quick?
Again, this is why I think, finding running back value on the waiver wire is tough because you're kind of looking for like future. But Elijah Mitchell, again, the number one backup to CMC, still getting a little bit of work. Saw 11 touches. I know it was kind of a blowout of a game, but got 11 touches this week. So he is one of those guys that if, God forbid, anything happened to CMC, Elijah Mitchell would instantly be a top 10 guy. So that offense is insane, super powerful. You get Kyle Shanahan as your run coordinator. So, again, this is a little of an insurance policy, kind of an edge to the CMC thing and whatnot. But, again, Elijah is clearly back in his backup role and is getting involved to give at least CMC a blow here and there. And then God forbid something happens, you could have a starter every week.
Yeah, he's just like Spears. He's another backup. Have upside. Like I had one on my team, and God forbid something happens. The next ones here are kind of combined with like the Ravens backfield here. Justice Hill fell under the 40% mark again, mostly probably because he was hurt. And if he does play in this week, I would assume that he would take majority of this offense over what we saw from Drake and Melvin Gordon. Especially if, Gus Edwards is out this week. Justice Hill might be a play-in RB2 for you if you're looking for somebody in week 4 here. So if he's out there, I mean, he's worth the pickup. Again, I'm not spending big money on him. He's not a guy like, oh, I got to go out and get him. But he could fill in it for an RB slot for you. And again, just with like the Ravens running backs, other Ravens running backs, like Drake, had some passing work. So did Melvin Gordon. If you're in maybe a deeper man leagues, these are good guys to kind of put on your bench and maybe they get an actual opportunity to get involved in this offense here. So that's what about it. Dylan, let's see here. He's got some questions. 12-man team PPR. He kind of wants to know what moves would we make. Trying to upgrade his wide receiver to an RB3 slot. So he's got Anthony Richardson, Tony Pollard, James Cook, Khalil Herbert, Tajay Spears, Elijah Mitchell. So a lot of good backup play there. I love that. Diggs, Ayuk, Hopkins, Michael Thomas, Hollywood Brown, Tank Dell. Guy we'll probably talk about in a few. And, of course, Mark Andrews will play it. So he wants to think about upgrading his wide receiver 2 and his RB3 spot. What moves, what kind of players do you think?
Wide receiver 2, well, I mean, I think you could probably package up. I mean, I don't know what the value on Khalil Herbert is at this point, but I'm thinking package up Khalil Herbert and then either Hopkins or Ayuk, and then go make an upgrade at your wide receiver or running back, whoever you think you can get. But you're gonna have to sort of package. Or you could, take James Cook and package like Michael Thomas, right? Either go up with your running back a little and do a lesser wide receiver, but that seems to be kind of the moves you're going to. I wouldn't move Pollard, Diggs. I don't think you're going to get much for Hollywood. I wouldn't move Tank Dell. I think really it's Herbert and then Ayuk or Hopkins or Michael Thomas, one of those three, and then try and make a move. I would upgrade your running back position and then worry about wide receiver on the waiver wire. Because again, I think it's just so hard to replace. It's hard to replace value with the running backs on the waiver wire. So if you can, turn Khalil Herbert and I'm trying to think, if you could turn Herbert and Hopkins into Ramondre Stevenson, would you do it?
Good. That is a good question there.
Because that's kind of like the level. Because that's kind of the level of the guy you're going to have to go for. You're going to have to go for a low end back end one, high end.
I don't know if I would do it as a Stevenson owner.
Okay.
So like I don't really want Khalil Herbert. I don't really want Hopkins. Like they're not doing it for me unless like depending on what their team look like per se. Like that doesn't move the needle for me to want to move off Stevenson. Again, it was a bad week, but. I Khalil Herbert isn't doing anything better, and neither is Hopkins right now. So, like,
Yeah.
I'd rather hold on to the guy that we saw have RB1 upside, but just hasn't shown us that much this year.
Okay.
The best thing I would do is it's going to be hard to make an upgrade at your RB3 slot. There's really not a lot of options that I could think of off the top of my head that you can get that potential upside play. Like you're going to get another player there. Like I would look more towards your wide receiver 2. And like if you want to make it, I want to upgrade over Hopkins right now. Like I'd want to see if I can use Hopkins, and I honestly would want to see if I can use Tank Dell. Like I love Tank Dell, I do. He looks fantastic, and he's my number 1 waiver wire pickup for wide receivers. But again, he's also a small 5'8" wide receiver here, and a team that I don't think is going to be very good still long term for this season here. And see if you can make an upgrade from that. Like if someone's buying in this Tank Dell thing, someone will pay up for it. Like if I could go Hopkins and Tank Dell and try to get up a guy who I still really like maybe Jalen Waddle, maybe like,
oh God, yeah. If someone's willing to give you Jalen Waddle level player, I just don't know if you're gonna. I agree with you. I just don't know. I agree
I would even give up Ayuk in that scenario for that reason. Like Ayuk's hurt right now. Jalen Waddle's not hurt. He just has a concussion, which easily and his best days hasn't come yet. Like we know he puts up like 120 yards and a touchdown very easily any given week.
Right.
So like
yeah, I
use
agree.
Ayuk to get that.
Yeah, if you could Ayuk and Tank Dell for Jalen Waddle, you would do that?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
I absolutely would. Yeah. I still have high hopes. I still have high hopes that Jalen Waddle is going to have a big season still. But again, your team in general sense, I think it's a really good team. I understand that your wide receivers kind of in the middle are kind of they're fine. They're all brand names. We know them, but they obviously don't have the upside that you want. So I get trying to make that move, but that would be the move you could make there. But you do have Tank Dell now. So Tank Dell has major upside that might jump a lot of these guys that you can put in your lineup on a week-to-week basis where you don't really need to make a move too much. But that would be the kind of move I would make there. For that situation. So
I like that.
If you want to get crazy, I would try to trade Mark Andrews and get Sam Laporta plus if I could right now. But
that's not a terrible option either, because it's funny. The biggest piece, in my opinion, one of the biggest pieces on your team right now is your tight end. And you could go get Sam Laporta plus, you could go get, I can't even think. Imagine like going to get Hunter Henry plus a bunch, right? Like
that's
plus a bunch of players. Like plus whatever.
That would be too much for me. But
it's tight end 1 on the year right now.
All right, so give me a quick trade that you would want to make with that, so Dylan has something here.
With Mark Andrews or just in general?
Just in general, whatever.
I would try and package up. Like I said, I would try and package up Khalil Herbert with either Ayuk or Hopkins, and then go make an upgrade with those.
For your running back or wide receiver?
I would try and upgrade the running back just because it's harder to find production on the waiver wire at running back. So, if you could go get a Najee Harris, go trade for someone who's super underperforming right now. I don't know. I think that's fine. I'm okay with that move.
Like I said, Dylan, mine would be either try to get Hopkins and Tank Dell or Tank Dell and Ayuk to go get a Jalen Waddle side. That's how I see out of that trade. So that would, I think, help your team in the long run, because I think there's more upside there. So, yeah, take a look around. If you want to break up the Diggs and Cook thing, absolutely go for it. So,
yeah, I didn't even.
I appreciate you joining in and chatting with us. So, thank you.
Yeah, always fun.
Yeah. All right. Give us your Clyde Edwards-Helaire take here.
So this one is just the fact that I think he looked pretty good the other night. I get worried anytime we have these undrafted free agent rookies that blow up and then they're battling a hamstring or a this or a that. The team's just not tied to this player 100%, and so maybe he starts to become more of either he's injured and not in and out of the lineup, or he becomes more of a rotational piece. And so, again, this is just a stab at a good offense, and there's just hard to find, production on the waiver wire. And CEH, it's not pretty. I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's like this crazy explosive guy, but if you're going to give me 10 touches in Kansas City's offense, he has as good a chance of falling in the end zone as anybody. So the touchdowns went this week to Jerick McKinnon, but it could just as easily be a CEH game if they really do go into this sort of nebulous split that I think they're gonna with Isaiah Pacheco.
All right. And my last guy I had on my list here was Matt Breida. We don't know what's going on with Saquon still. We don't know if he is going to be out another week or not. Again, it's not a big move, but if you're desperate at running back, Matt Breida, fits the bill. He saw most of the work in that offense there for the Giants. And of course, like Gary Brightwell, he saw some work in the receiving game. Sean Tucker is another hold on to and see what happens kind of thing. Like if you have a roster spot right now that you can add and drop, I would definitely add and drop Sean Tucker right now.
Yeah, 100% leading into tonight's game. That's
right,
a great
call. I
call.
would if you could right now just to see what happens. You don't know injuries. Maybe Rachaad White doesn't play well, so another guy just to keep in mind. Over the wide receivers, some high guys here. I never gave you. Did I tell you about Adam Thielen?
Yeah, I gave.
I definitely didn't look at your text then.
Yeah.
You said Nelson Aguilar, yes, and I did not change that. So you're just the. So Adam Thielen, Elijah Moore, guys that are in that 60% range that you could definitely. Yep. I would definitely consider adding if you can to your team right now. There's a bit above the 40% mark that we talk about. Yep. Since I talked about the top running back, John, you can talk about the top wide receiver.
Tank Dell. I'll give you my why I love Tank Dell. Obviously, you've seen on the field, he can perform. He looks great. Tank Dell was a very interesting prospect. He was hyper productive. I mean, in his 2 years, his junior and senior year, I think it was something crazy, like over 2,500 receiving yards, like insane production. But he's a small guy at 5'8", 165 pounds, whatever, little guy. He goes to the Senior Bowl, dominates the Senior Bowl, dominates every 1v1 drill, dominates all that crap. Everyone's writing him up, hyping him up. And so come draft season, we're like, oh, this guy's going to shoot up a draft board. He doesn't. He falls to a realistic range that we all, we kind of expected because he's a little guy in the NFL. And the questions were, how can he be productive like he was in college? Well, he's 3 weeks in and he's showing that he's productive. He catches the ball. He's a ridiculous route runner. He has a nose for the end zone. I just think there is something about Tank Dell that is a gamer. He's just a football player. Like he just knows how to get open. He knows how to find, lapses in coverage. And I think that there's something to him that you can't really quantify. I know that's stupid for fantasy and I know it's hard to explain, but when you see all the drumbeat and hype for a year and a half in college, then to the Senior Bowl where he's going against some of the best seniors in the country, and then to walk in 3 games into the NFL and be productive, it's like, okay, at some point we have to just say, maybe this is who this guy is. And so I genuinely think Tank Dell is going to be a wide receiver 3 with upside for the rest of the season. I think he's great. So, I like Tank Dell. I'm totally fine dropping Fab, plugging him in your lineup right away. I don't need to put him on my bench to see what I got. I'm cool with just picking him up and putting him in right now. And there's not many guys you can say that for.
Okay. So my next guy on my list here was Quentin Johnston. Obviously, we know what Mike Evans is out for the season here now. Quentin Johnston fits that Mike Evans type. We're like Joshua Palmer, and I'll kind of combine these two actually to make it easier. Joshua Palmer doesn't really fit that downfield threat. He's more of that possession style wide receiver. So if it was Keenan Allen getting hurt, I would like Josh Palmer a little bit better. He fits that role to that offense a bit. And again, he's going to get a bump up in playing time as well early on as the rookie continues to see work. But I think Quentin Johnston, you need to get him on your team now. He's available on the 40% of leagues. He needs to be added to your team here because he has tremendous upside in this offense here. Someone who goes downfield and can beat people with their speed. And this offense is going to continue to throw the ball at a high volume. Justin Herbert is going to continue to throw the ball. And I was telling people, hold on, Quentin Johnston. Just hold on, Quentin Johnston. He's going to get his chance. And now he's gotten his chance. One of the top 2 guys got hurt. He needs to be added onto your team currently right now.
Yep.
All right. John, you have Nelson Aguilar that I did not put in here. Tell us about Nelson Aguilar.
Well, it would have slid all the way to the bottom, but I'll tell you about Nelson Aguilar. Nelson Aguilar is another one who this wide receiver core for the Ravens, I think, is not shaking out the way we all expected or the way we all wanted or probably even the way the Ravens wanted. But through Nelson Aguilar was getting a little bit of praise from the wide receiver coach. He was getting a little bit of praise from Lamar Jackson. And then he was kind of on the outside looking in because they had Zay Flowers, they just paid OBJ and all this. So, but Rashad Bateman is kind of banged up again. OBJ isn't obviously the player who the Ravens thought they were getting. And, we're getting Nelson Aguilar getting involved in over 70% of snaps. And so I think that there's, they're going to have to throw. They're not going to throw a lot, but they're going to have to throw a little. And so I think that there is potential to start him in a flex. I mean, Zay Flowers is obviously going to be the target hog there if there is one. But if you're going to take downfield chances, it's probably with Nelson Aguilar. And we know that Lamar takes a few of those every game. And so, all he needs to be is connect on one or two big plays and you've made your fantasy week. And so I think it's, it's crazy that I said it in the text to you. I go, it's crazy that we're already here, but I think you have to start considering rostering Nelson Aguilar, and it's heading into week 4 of the NFL season.
I like it. My next one was Romeo Doubs, the Green Bay Packers second-year wide receiver. Obviously, we know that Christian Watson hasn't been on the field yet, and we don't know when he's going to be on the field overall there. Romeo Doubs has seen potential this year so far, and he's looked good at moments. He has a lot of boom upside player to his game here. They have great matchups down the stretch here. And Romeo Doubs is now playing back at full speed, full snap count, full routes run, and he's seeing the target share and he's making it work with the yards and the touchdowns right now. It seems like this Packers offense is here to stay, and they can't seem to run the ball for shit right now. They're throwing the ball, and I'm going to continue to hope that they do throw the ball, which I think they will. So Romeo Doubs definitely needs to be added, and at least added to your bench, and I think can be a flexible play, or at least is going to be a really good bye week replacement for the rest during the bye week season. So he was another player that I had. And John, you had Marvin Mims as one of our last top guys here. Talk about Marvin Mims.
Marvin Mims, another one. I think this is where we're starting to see the rookies sort of come into their own and start to take over in their prospective offenses. Marvin Mims, listen, last week, 2 for 113 and a score. This week, 3 for 73. I mean, this guy is just going to be, as the role increases, as the targets increase, as things go on, he's getting targeted anytime he's on the field. He's not playing a ton of snaps, but when he's out there getting targeted, and when he's getting targeted, they're absolute bomb targets. And so I think you have to, and he's good with some yards after the catch stuff. He's quick, he's shifty. So he's another guy who's kind of always a threat to score anytime the ball gets thrown his way. So I think Marvin Mims, to me, if he could get a little bit more, sort of up there in snap percentage and targets, I would feel way more comfortable putting him in my flex. But right now, he feels like one of those guys who is like your perfect sort of flex play where, I might get a 2-point game. I might get a 20-point game. You know what I'm saying? Like he's just an explosive guy. And the Broncos need to figure something out quick because people are going to start losing their jobs and people are going to start like it's getting bad in Broncos country. So, if Cortland Sutton can't be the explosive player they need him to be, maybe it's Marvin Mims, so I think there's going to be some serious changes going forward. And Marvin Mims over the past 2 weeks has shown that he deserves targets and he deserves to get the ball thrown his way.
Yeah, that's good analysis on that there. I like Marvin Mims. He just needs more work. It's just he really needs more work. So Dylan came back and asked another question if you should drop anyone from that team there. I said not really.
No, I think those are all roster worthy players. It's like if you just want to upgrade a little, then that's fine. But none of those guys are like, oh, you should definitely cut that guy. Like you're not like you're sitting on. I can't even think of a name.
Like I said, I told him like I said, if any of these top guys, like if it was like a Devon A-Chain or Quentin Johnston, if one of those guys were available, I would drop like Herbert or something to pick them up. But yeah, if you don't have those guys on your waiver wires, then you just hold on to your roster.
Mm-hmm.
Some other players you could consider. Josh Downs had a really great week this week here. Fantastic. Rashad Rashid, I continue to like him still, even with a bad week he had. But he had a punt return for a touchdown, so that was cool. Calvin Austin had a big week. Jalen Reed is pretty consistent as a slot player for the Packers. Bob Woods, and he was fine. And then Devontae Parker is the number 1 for the Patriots. So,
yep, yeah, those are all fine names. I think I would probably, I think chasing the targets of Bob Woods and Devontae Parker is fine, but I just don't know if there's much upside to those two pickups. The other ones, Josh Down, Rashid Shaheed, Calvin Austin, Jaden Reed, they have a little bit more sort of to offer. They have a little bit more pop.
Right, exactly. Dylan asked, should he – he was also wondering about the Derrick Henry owner. Should he go get him as the Spears owner? So should he package those guys on his team?
So that's a good question. So if you could package Herbert and Ayuk, yeah, but I don't know if the Derrick Henry owner would do that. But yeah, I mean, I guess if you could somehow, combine two guys, or maybe it's Mark Andrews.
Like, do you trade James Cook right now for Derrick Henry? I think that would
straight up.
Yes, that was the big thing. Actually, yeah, Dylan just asked that straight up. That would be the thing.
Oh, that is such a hard question. Because everything in my gut wants to say Derrick Henry, right? Like everything wants to say, because I've seen it over the past couple of years. I know there's production there, but I'm also witnessing James Cook put up production currently and do well in a good offense. So to trade that away for a guy who doesn't look awesome in a bad offense right now feels bad, and it feels weird. So I don't know if I would. I think I would keep riding James Cook. I don't know if I'd trade him straight up, to be honest, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Crazy to think about.
I would
That's
say,
such a good question, though. That's a great question. That's a sell high, buy low if I've ever heard one.
Yeah, I would hold off personally. I think I would rather just keep James Cook. He's the younger back that's performing in a high-power offense.
Yeah.
I know Derrick Henry's been defining the odds for so many years with the shitty Titans team, but he's hurt. He's not seeing the workload that I want to see out of him anymore currently. I mean, James Cook is at least getting 17 carries a game almost. Like he's going to break a couple of them for 20-yard gains. So yeah. I would just rather hold on to it. Plus, again, at that point, like I said, if something happens to Derrick Henry, then you have your new RB3 potentially with Tajay Spears. So.
Yeah. In my mind, it's funny. In my mind, you're basically getting 17 touches a game. It's like, would you rather have 17 touches in the Bills offense or 17 touches in the Titans offense? And in my mind, I think I'd have to go Bills. I just think there's more, more scoring opportunity, more chances.
Yeah, hold on a second. Just 6 minutes, but follow us over on Twitter
and subscribe to the YouTube channel. All the new listeners and all the new chat. I love this. We're getting new people. I feel like every day, every week. It's fun, man. This is we're
yeah. I like that. I like it.
It's getting hot in here.
Yeah, if you have any more questions, and we're going to be out here in the next 6 minutes. But if you have more questions, feel free to give us a follow over on Twitter at Coaches Fantasy, and just send us any questions, and we'll talk about them offline. So let's get to the tight ends here. We'll finish this up real quick here. So the tight end position, John, I'll let you talk about Luke Musgrave. So go for it.
Sure. Luke Musgrave is a guy who, again, I think with these rookies, you have to talk about their draft profile. And Luke Musgrave was a athletic, tight end who could stretch the seam and be that player for Green Bay Packers. And he looks like he's going to be. So it's hard to trust rookie tight ends, but between him and Sam Laporta, they both look like they belong, and they're playing the tight end position really, really well. So I like the pickup. I think you can pick them up and play them. And in the tight end market, that's worth something, because it's just hard. It's hard to find guys who's going to get, 5-6 targets a game that you can kind of rely on every week.
Right. Now I like that. Luke Musgrave has been really someone I've been adding to my roster. There's a lot this year, especially in redraft as a tight end if I didn't pick up one early. So he's on my list. But Jake Ferguson, I continue to add him. He's getting close to being that 40% mark, but I still want to add him if he's out there on waivers. He finally had a good game altogether. Week 1, bad game, but he got the targets. Week 2, bad game, but he got the touchdown. This week, he put together basically everything besides the touchdown, which I think is growth for his potential for the rest of the season here. He's still seeing most of the work in this Cowboys offense here. So he's definitely someone I still want to go out there and grab And if you're looking for a tight end, still streaming tight ends, still want to have him on my roster because I still think he's going to have value as the season goes on. John, you have Donald Farham on there. If you want to quickly go through him.
He looks to be like a major red zone target for a very good passing offense. And, he had another touchdown this week. I think he had 2 touchdowns this week. So Mike Williams out again. This is just, I want to see how this passing attack shakes out. But clearly when they get down into the red zone, Donald Parham is in the plans. And at this point, when you're outside of the top 4 tight ends, you're just looking for a guy who's going to fall in the end zone. And Donald Parham has shown he can absolutely do that. So I'm cool picking him up.
All right. I like it. A couple other options, Hayden Hurst, Taysom Hill, Cade Otton if he does well tonight. And again, no fans played back-to-back decent games, so I just threw him on the bottom of that list there. But again, the tight end position, again, there's really not a lot of great ones out there at this moment. I think Luke Musgrave, we can agree for the most part, is the best option. Mm-hmm. But hopefully we get some more as the season goes on, guys. It's a long season still. If you're 0-3, 1-2 after this week, don't sweat it. They're like I've gone 0-4 and I've made it all the way. I fought my way back all the way to the playoffs. It's very possible. It's
so crazy. You hear stories like that every year, and I get it because listeners, people of the chat of the I'm 0-3 in my favorite in the biggest league of my life. I'm 0-3, and it stinks. And you mentally want to just pack it in. But don't just battle back, make a couple little trades, tweak the roster, do some waiver ads, and scrape and claw your way back in. Because all it takes is 2 weeks in a row of wins, and now all of a sudden you're 2-3, and you feel totally different about your organization.
Exactly. And if you're 3-0 now, don't let up. Figure ways to make your team better because you're not going to have the best chance to get a lot of people unless you play in fab leagues. So make sure you find ways to make your team good. God forbid something happens. So I always say that. Just never give up. Never take your eye off the ball. Yep. But again, guys, thanks for listening tonight. All those who have subscribed to us after tonight, those who jumped in the chat, we appreciate it. Obviously, we're here to help you guys win championships. We just love talking fantasy. Love helping you guys out here. Again, we're here every Monday and Thursday night, 5:30 p.m. Eastern. We're talking waivers on Mondays. We're talking start and sits on Thursdays here. I even do my Sunday show, even though half the show I was on mute for, which is fun. But we try to get as much fantasy content in there for you guys as always there. We appreciate that. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to follow us over on Twitter. John's is up there. You can follow the main page at Coaches Fantasy. And thanks for listening, guys. Tune in until next time, and y'all have a good one.
Back to back is not far-fetched. We got a couple of Clark Kents.